Have you ever stood at the edge of a new year feeling more terrified than hopeful? Like everyone else is celebrating fresh starts while you're drowning in the wreckage of last year's disasters. This is the story of Sarah Mitchell, a 39-year-old single mother from Charlotte, North Carolina, who entered 2026 with $127 in her bank account, 3 hungry children, and a mountain of debt that seemed impossible to climb. But what happened in the first 30 days of this new year didn't just change her financial situation. It transformed her entire understanding of faith, provision, and what God can do when you're willing to take the first step, even when you can't see the staircase. If you're starting this year feeling like you're already behind, like everyone else has it together except you, or like your financial situation is too broken to fix, I need you to hear this story. Because Sarah's journey from $127 to financial freedom wasn't about luck, lottery tickets, or magic. It was about faith combined with strategic action, obedience mixed with wisdom, and the powerful truth that God doesn't waste your wilderness. Before we dive in, if this type of content speaks to your heart, hit that subscribe button. These stories take time to research and craft, and your support helps us keep creating content that actually changes lives. Now, let me take you back to December 31st, 2025. The night everything shifted. Sarah Mitchell wasn't supposed to be here. That's what she kept thinking as she sat in her small 2-bedroom apartment in Charlotte, watching her 3 children, Emma, age 11, Joshua, age 8, and little Lily, age 5, play with toys that were mostly hand-me-downs and thrift store finds. Just 5 years ago, Sarah had been married to David, a successful real estate agent. They'd owned a beautiful 4-bedroom house in the suburbs. They took vacations. They had savings. Life wasn't perfect, but it was stable, comfortable, secure. Then came the affair. David had been seeing someone from his office for over a year. When Sarah discovered it, she was devastated. She wanted to fight for the marriage. She suggested counseling, prayer, anything to save their family. But David had already made his choice. He wanted the divorce. He wanted to start over with someone new, someone without stretch marks and exhaustion and the daily grind of raising 3 kids. The divorce was finalized in March 2023, and that's when Sarah's nightmare truly began. David was supposed to pay child support, $1,500 a month. The first 2 months, he paid. Then the payments became sporadic. Then they stopped completely. David had moved to Florida with his new girlfriend, started a new life, and apparently decided his old family wasn't his responsibility anymore. Sarah's lawyer said they could pursue him, take him to court, but that would cost money she didn't have, and even if they won, collecting from someone in another state who was determined not to pay was nearly impossible. So Sarah found herself alone, a single mother of 3 with no college degree, no career, and no safety net. She'd been a stay-at-home mum for 12 years. Her resume was blank. Her skills were outdated, but she had 3 kids who needed to eat, so she did what she had to do. She found work at a local grocery store, stocking shelves and running the register. $11 an hour, 40 hours a week when they gave her the hours. That came out to about $1,760 a month before taxes. After taxes, she brought home around $1,400. Her rent was $850. Utilities ran another $150. Food for 4 people, even shopping carefully and using food stamps, cost at least $400. That left exactly $0 for everything else. Car insurance, gas, phone bill, clothes for growing kids, school supplies, medical expenses, the occasional birthday present. Sarah was robbing Peter to pay Paul every single month, constantly juggling which bill to skip, which payment to delay, which creditor to avoid. She'd accumulated credit card debt trying to cover the gaps. What started as $2,000 in emergency charges had ballooned to $18,000. The minimum payments alone were $380 a month, money she simply didn't have. The calls from debt collectors became part of her daily soundtrack. She stopped answering unknown numbers. She'd see the phone light up and feel her stomach drop, that familiar spike of anxiety and shame. By December 2025, Sarah was 3 months behind on rent. Her landlord, Mrs. Chen, had been patient, But patience has limits. On December 23rd, Mrs. Chen knocked on Sarah's door with an eviction notice, 30 days. If Sarah couldn't come up with the $2,550 she owed, plus January's rent, they'd be out on the street by the end of January. Sarah had read that notice over and over, the words blurring through her tears. Where was she supposed to find $3,400? She was already working every hour the store would give her. She'd sold everything of value. The wedding ring, David's old golf clubs he'd left behind, her grandmother's jewelry. She had nothing left to sell except the furniture, and she needed that. Christmas had been heartbreaking. The kids had been so understanding, so mature about it. "We don't need presents, Mom," Emma had said, her 11-year-old eyes far too wise. "We just need you." But Sarah had seen the disappointment they tried to hide. She'd managed to get them each one small gift from the dollar store and baked cookies using the last of her flour and sugar. They'd pretended it was enough, but Sarah knew better. Now it was New Year's Eve, and while the rest of the world was preparing to celebrate, to pop champagne and make resolutions and dream about fresh starts, Sarah was staring at her bank account, $127.34. That was it. That was all that stood between her family and complete disaster. She had 4 days of food in the house. Her car was running on fumes. She had one more shift at the grocery store before her paycheck came in 8 days, and that paycheck, after rent, would leave her with almost nothing. The kids were asleep. It was 11:30 p.m. Sarah sat at her tiny kitchen table with a cup of tea. She'd reused the same tea bag for 3 times now, and she felt something inside her break. Not the dramatic, sudden break. The slow, grinding break of a person who'd been holding it together for so long that the facade finally crumbled. She put her head in her hands and she cried. The ugly kind of crying. The kind that comes from a place so deep you didn't even know it existed. She cried for her marriage, for her financial ruin, for her children who deserved so much better, for the life she thought she'd have, and the reality she was living. She cried until there were no more tears, just dry, shaking sobs. And then, in that space of complete emptiness, she prayed. Sarah had grown up in church. She'd been baptized at 12. She'd taught Sunday school before the kids were born. But over the past 2 years, her relationship with God had become complicated. She'd prayed for her marriage. It ended anyway. She'd prayed for David to pay child support. He didn't. She'd prayed for financial breakthrough. Things only got worse. At some point, she'd stopped expecting God to show up. She still believed he existed, but she wasn't sure he cared about her specifically. But tonight, with 30 minutes until a new year and $127 to her name, Sarah didn't have the energy for a polite, religious prayer. She just let it out. "God, I don't even know if you're listening. I don't know if you care. I've tried so hard. I've worked every hour I can. I've sacrificed everything. I've been responsible and careful, and I still can't make it work. I'm going to lose our home. My kids are going to be homeless. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn. If you're real, if you see me, I need help. I need a miracle, not a little help, a big one, because I'm drowning and I can't keep swimming." She sat there in the silence of her kitchen, the clock ticking toward midnight. She didn't hear a voice. She didn't see a vision. There was no burning bush or angelic visitation. But something happened in that moment. A thought dropped into her mind, so clear and specific that it felt different from her own thoughts. It wasn't audible, but it was undeniable. Write it down. Write down every single dollar you owe, every bill, every debt, every expense. Look at it, all of it. Then ask me to show you the way through. Sarah opened her laptop, an old machine that took forever to boot up, and she created a spreadsheet. For the next hour, as the new year arrived with distant fireworks and celebration she couldn't afford to participate in, Sarah wrote it all down. Every debt, every bill, every dollar she owed, credit cards, $18,214, back rent, $2,550. Utilities she was behind on $370. Medical bills from when Joshua broke his arm last year, $1,800. Car repairs she'd put on a payment plan, $900. Personal loan from her sister that she'd been avoiding talking about, $2,000. Total debt, $25,834. Her monthly expenses, rent, $850, utilities, $150, food, $400, gas, $120, phone, $60, car insurance, $100. Minimum debt payments she wasn't even making, $380. Total monthly expenses, $2,060. Her income after taxes, $1,400. She was $660 short every single month, and that was before any unexpected expenses, before clothes or school supplies or birthday presents or the million other things kids need. Sarah stared at the numbers on her screen. It was worse than she'd thought. Seeing it all written out, organized, quantified, made it real in a way that had been easier to avoid when it was just a vague cloud of stress hanging over her. This wasn't fixable with a little extra budgeting or cutting back on lattes. This was a structural problem. She simply didn't make enough money to support her family, and she had a mountain of debt crushing her from above. She should have felt more hopeless looking at those numbers. Instead, she felt something strange. Clarity. For the first time in 2 years, she could see the enemy clearly. It wasn't one giant, undefined monster. It was a list of specific problems, each with its own number, each with its own solution, however difficult that solution might be. She couldn't solve all of it tonight, but maybe, just maybe, she could solve one piece, then another, then another. That thought, that tiny spark of possibility, felt like it came from somewhere beyond herself. She closed her laptop and went to bed. She didn't have answers yet, but for the first time in a long time, she had something almost like hope. The next morning, January 1st, 2026, Sarah woke up early. The kids were still asleep. She made herself coffee, actual coffee, not reused tea bags, because it was a new year and she decided that some small dignities were worth the dollar it cost. She sat down with her laptop and that spreadsheet, and she prayed again. God, I wrote it down like you told me to. Now show me what to do, I'm listening. And then she started researching. She Googled financial help for single mothers. She found government assistance programs she didn't know existed. She found non-profit organizations that helped with utility bills. She found food banks she'd been too proud to consider. She found free financial counseling services. She found Facebook groups for single moms in her area who shared resources and tips. One link led to another. She discovered a local church, not her old church, but a different one, that had a program specifically designed to help families in crisis. They offered financial counseling, budgeting classes, help negotiating with creditors, and even a small emergency fund for people facing eviction. The program was run by volunteers, people who'd been through financial disasters themselves and wanted to help others. Sarah stared at the information. This church was only 15 minutes from her apartment. The program met every Tuesday night. The next meeting was in 5 days. She could go, she could ask for help. But asking for help meant admitting she'd failed. It meant walking into a room full of strangers and confessing that she couldn't handle her life. The pride and shame rose up in her throat like bile. But then she thought about Emma, Joshua, and Lily. She thought about that eviction notice. She thought about what would happen if she let pride keep her from doing what needed to be done, and she sent an email to the program coordinator, explaining her situation and asking if she could attend the next meeting. The response came within 2 hours. Yes, absolutely. They'd love to have her. Bring your financial information. Bring your bills. Bring your questions. They'd help her figure out a plan. The email was signed by someone named Patricia Williams. If you're watching this and you're in a situation like Sarah's, feeling overwhelmed by debt and not knowing where to start, I want you to pause right here and leave a comment. Tell me what your biggest financial struggle is right now. Not because I'm being nosy, but because there's power in naming it, in bringing it into the light, in admitting you need help. Sarah's breakthrough started the moment she wrote down the truth. Yours can too. And when this story is over, come back and let me know what action you took. I read every comment and I'm genuinely invested in seeing you win. The next few days were a blur of activity for Sarah. She gathered every bill, every statement, every piece of financial documentation she could find. She organized it all in a folder. She felt like a patient preparing for surgery, gathering all her medical records, ready to let a doctor diagnose the problem and prescribe a treatment plan. On Tuesday night, January 6th, Sarah drove to Hope Community Church. Her hands were shaking on the steering wheel. She almost turned around 3 times, but she kept hearing that voice in her head, the one from New Year's Eve. Keep going. Trust me. I've got you. The meeting was held in a small classroom in the church basement. There were about 12 people there, a mix of ages and backgrounds. Patricia Williams turned out to be a black woman in her 60s, with kind eyes and a warm smile. She welcomed Sarah like she'd been expecting her, like Sarah wasn't a burden but a gift. Patricia explained how the program worked. They'd meet for 8 weeks. Each week would cover a different topic: budgeting, dealing with debt, increasing income, managing credit, long-term planning. Between sessions, participants would work with volunteer financial coaches who'd help them implement what they learned. It was completely free. No strings attached, just people helping people. That first night, they talked about the psychology of debt. Patricia said something that hit Sarah like a lightning bolt. Debt isn't usually a math problem. It's a behavior problem. Most of us don't get into financial trouble because we're bad at arithmetic. We get into trouble because we spend money we don't have on things we don't need to impress people we don't like. We use shopping to cope with stress. We treat credit cards like free money instead of loans with outrageous interest rates. We make financial decisions based on emotion instead of strategy. Sarah thought about her own journey. How much of her debt was from actual emergencies versus emotional spending? She'd bought things for the kids she couldn't afford because she felt guilty about the divorce. She'd ordered takeout when she was too exhausted to cook. She'd made small purchases to make herself feel better. A new shirt here, a coffee there, $5 at a time, that added up to hundreds over months. She hadn't been irresponsible on purpose, but she hadn't been strategic either. After the session, Patricia pulled Sarah aside. I read your email. I know you're facing eviction. That's our first priority. Let's set up a time to meet one-on-one this week, and we'll tackle this together. How's Thursday morning? Sarah had to work Thursday morning, but Patricia said, What time do you get off? Sarah said, 3 p.m. Patricia said, I'll meet you at a coffee shop near your work at 3:15. We'll figure this out. On Thursday afternoon, Sarah sat across from Patricia at a local Starbucks. Patricia had brought a calculator, a notebook, and an air of calm competence that made Sarah feel like maybe, just maybe, this was actually solvable. They started with the eviction notice. $25.50 in back rent plus $8.50 for January, $3,400 total due by the end of the month. That was 25 days away. Patricia asked, Do you have anything you could sell? Sarah shook her head. I've already sold everything of value. Patricia asked, What about your tax refund? When do you expect that? Sarah calculated. She'd claimed all 3 kids as dependents. She qualified for earned income credit. Her refund would probably be around $4,500, but that wouldn't come until late February at the earliest, maybe March. Too late to stop the eviction. Patricia thought for a moment. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Our church has an emergency fund for situations exactly like this. We can cover $1,500 of what you owe. That leaves $1,900. You said your next paycheck is in 3 days, right? After you pay your bills, how much will you have left? Sarah calculated, maybe $200. Patricia said, Okay, so we need $1,700 more. Let's get creative. Patricia asked about Sarah's skills. What are you good at? What did you do before you were a stay-at-home mom? Sarah said she'd worked in customer service at a bank. She was good with computers, good with people, good at problem-solving. Patricia asked, Can you work extra hours at the grocery store? Sarah said they wouldn't give her more than 40 hours. Patricia said, Then we need a second income stream, something flexible you can do around your kids and your current job. They brainstormed. Sarah couldn't do anything that required childcare since she couldn't afford it. It had to be something she could do from home or during school hours. They looked at online options: virtual assistant work, data entry, transcription, customer service for companies that hired remote workers. Patricia walked Sarah through signing up for 3 different platforms that connected freelancers with short-term gigs. The work wasn't glamorous. Most of it paid $10 to $15 an hour, but it was flexible and it was immediate. Sarah could log on at night after the kids went to bed and pick up small jobs. Over the next 2 weeks, Sarah worked like she'd never worked before. She put in her 40 hours at the grocery store. Then she'd come home, make dinner for the kids, help with homework, get them to bed, and log onto her laptop to work until midnight or 1 a.m. She did customer service chats for an online retailer. She transcribed audio files. She did data entry for a marketing company. It was exhausting. Her eyes burned, her back ached, but every night she'd check her earnings. $23, $37, $18, $41, small amounts that added up day by day. She also called Mrs. Chen, her landlord, and laid out the situation honestly. Mrs. Chen, I know I owe you money. I'm not making excuses, but I'm working on it. I have a plan. I'm working 2 jobs now. The church is helping me with $1,500. I'll have another $700 from my paycheck. I'm making extra money online. I will have the full amount by the end of January. I just need you to trust me. Mrs. Chen was silent for a long moment. Then she said, Sarah, I've known you for 3 years. You've always paid on time until this year. I know you're trying. If you can give me $2,000 by the end of January, I'll accept that and we can work out a payment plan for the rest. But I need to see you're serious. $2,000. That was more manageable than $3,400. Sarah agreed. She'd make it work. By January 20th, Sarah had earned $630 from her online work. Combined with the $1,500 from the church and the $300 she'd scraped together from her paycheck, she had $2,430. She needed $170 more. She was so close. That's when Emma, her 11-year-old daughter, came to her. Mom, I want to help. Emma had been saving birthday money and allowance from before the divorce, small amounts she'd collected over the years. She had $183 in a piggy bank. I want to give it to you, for the rent. Sarah started crying. Emma, no, that's your money. You've been saving that. But Emma was insistent. Mom, you work so hard for us. Let me help. We're a team, right? Sarah took the money, but only as a loan. She wrote Emma an IOU. $183. I will pay you back with interest. I promise. Emma smiled. I know you will, Mom. On January 28th, Sarah stood in Mrs. Chen's kitchen with $2,000 in cash. Most of it was small bills, 1s and 5s from her online work, money that represented countless hours of tired eyes and aching backs and choosing to work instead of sleep. Mrs. Chen counted it carefully, then looked at Sarah with something like respect. You did it. I wasn't sure you would, but you did. Sarah had stopped the eviction, but she wasn't done. Not even close. She still had $18,000 in credit card debt. She was still behind on utilities. She still had medical bills and a loan from her sister. But she'd won a battle, and that victory changed something fundamental inside her. At the next Tuesday meeting at Hope Community Church, Patricia introduced Sarah to a financial coach named Marcus. Marcus was a volunteer, a man in his 50s who'd gone through his own financial collapse 10 years earlier. He'd lost a business, filed for bankruptcy, and spent years rebuilding. Now he used that experience to help others. Marcus sat down with Sarah and her spreadsheet of doom, as she'd started calling it. He didn't flinch at the numbers. He'd seen worse. They created a plan. First, they had to stop the bleeding. No more new debt. Period. Sarah cut up her credit cards. They physically destroyed them. It felt terrifying and liberating at the same time. Second, they had to create a real budget. Marcus introduced her to the zero-based budgeting method. Every dollar gets assigned a job before the month starts. Income minus expenses should equal 0, not negative, not hoping for the best, actual 0. They went through every expense line by line. Rent, $850, non-negotiable. Utilities, $150. Could they reduce this? Maybe. Marcus suggested Sarah call the utility company and ask about budget billing and assistance programs. Food, $400. Marcus said this was actually pretty good for 4 people. but they should visit the food bank once a week to supplement. That could drop food costs to $2.50 down, saving $1.50 a month. Gas, $1.20. Could Sarah carpool with anyone from work? Could she consolidate errands? They targeted dropping this to $80. Phone, $60. Marcus helped her switch to a cheaper plan, $40 a month. Saved $20. Car insurance, $100. Marcus helped her shop around and found a plan for $75. Saved $25. Those small changes added up to $215 a month in savings. Combined with Sarah's second income from online work, averaging about $400 to $500 a month, Sarah suddenly had margin. Real margin. Money left over after the bills were paid. That margin became her weapon. Marcus taught her the debt snowball method. List every debt from smallest to largest. Pay minimums on everything except the smallest. Attack the smallest with every extra dollar you have. When it's dead, roll that payment into the next debt. The snowball gets bigger as it rolls. Sarah's smallest debt was the utility bill she was behind on, $370. With her newfound margin, she could pay this off in 6 weeks. She attacked it with intensity. Every extra dollar went to that bill. When she made an extra $30 from a late-night transcription job, it went to the utilities. When she found a $5 bill in an old coat pocket, it went to the utilities. When the kids got money for their birthdays from distant relatives, half went to savings and half went to the utilities. By the end of February, the utility bill was paid in full. One debt gone. Sarah felt a rush of accomplishment so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. It was only $370. She still had over $24,000 to go. But that one small victory proved something crucial. This is possible. I can do this. I'm not helpless. At the next Tuesday meeting, when Patricia asked if anyone had victories to share, Sarah stood up. Her hands were shaking. I paid off my first debt. It was just the utility bill, but I paid it off. The room erupted in applause. People she barely knew were cheering for her, celebrating with her because they understood. They'd been there. They knew how hard it was. They knew what that victory meant. After the meeting, a woman named Jennifer approached Sarah. I heard you're doing online work at night. Is it hard to find? Sarah explained the platforms she was using. Jennifer said she was looking for extra income too. They exchanged numbers. Over the next few weeks, they became accountability partners. They'd text each other late at night while working, still going. Yeah, you, yeah, keep pushing. Almost done with this project. Small encouragements that made the lonely night work feel less lonely. If you're still watching, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm show this story to more people who need to hear it. And if you've ever paid off a debt, no matter how small, drop the amount in the comments. $50, $500, $50,000. It doesn't matter. Let's celebrate every victory together. Let's build a community of people who refuse to stay stuck. By March, Sarah had paid off 3 debts. The utilities, $370, a small medical bill, $200, and a personal loan she'd taken from her sister, $2,000. She'd gone from owing $25,834 to owing $23,264. She was $2,570 closer to freedom. But more importantly, she was different. She was stronger. She was more disciplined. She'd discovered capabilities she didn't know she had. She could work 12, 14-hour days and still show up for her kids. She could say no to wants and yes to needs. She could delay gratification. She could make a plan and execute it. Her kids noticed the change too. Emma said, "Mom, you're different. You smile more. You don't seem as worried all the time." Joshua said, "I like that you're home more now that you're not so stressed." Even little Lily sensed it. She'd climb into Sarah's lap while she was working on the laptop and say, "You're working really hard, Mommy. I'm proud of you." Marcus helped Sarah set bigger goals. By the end of 2026, they wanted to have all the credit card debt paid off, all $18,214. That seemed impossible, but Marcus broke it down. That's about $1,500 a month. You're making $1,400 from your main job plus $400 to $500 from side work. That's $1,800 to $1,900 a month. After expenses of $1,845 with your new reduced budget, you've got maybe $55 to $100 a month extra. That's not enough. They needed to increase income more. Sarah couldn't work more hours. There literally weren't more hours in the day, so they had to work smarter. Marcus asked, "What skills do you have that you could monetize at a higher rate than $10 to $15 an hour?" Sarah thought about it. She'd been doing customer service and data entry, but her old job at the bank, she'd been good at financial analysis. She'd helped customers understand their accounts, create budgets, plan for purchases. Could she use those skills? Marcus suggested she get certified as a financial coach herself. There were programs that offered training for less than $500. Once certified, she could charge $50 to $75 an hour coaching people one-on-one on budgeting and debt payoff. It would take time to build a client base, but it was a path to significantly higher income. Sarah was skeptical. Who would pay me for financial advice when I'm drowning in debt myself? Marcus smiled. The best teachers are the ones who are learning. You're living this right now. You understand the struggle in a way someone who's always been good with money never will. Your mess is your message. Sarah used $500 from her tax refund, which came in mid-March, to enroll in a financial coaching certification program. She studied at night after her online work was done. She took notes. She practiced. She joined coaching communities online. By May, she was certified. She started offering her services for free to friends and acquaintances, just to get experience. She helped a co-worker create a budget. She helped a mum from her kids in school negotiate with credit card companies. Word spread. By June, she had her first paying client, a young couple drowning in student loan debt who heard about her from a friend. They paid her $50 for a 2-hour session. Sarah cried when she got that payment. $50 for 2 hours. That was more per hour than she'd ever made in her life. By July, she had 3 regular clients. By August, 6. By September, 10. She was making an extra $600 to $800 a month from coaching, on top of the $300 to $400 from online work. Her total monthly income had gone from $1,400 to over $2,600. The margin exploded. She was suddenly paying $1,500 to $2,000 a month toward debt. The snowball was rolling fast now. By the end of September, Sarah had paid off all her credit cards except one. That last card, the biggest one, had started at $8,400. It was now down to $4,200. She was halfway through the monster. At Hope Community Church, Patricia asked Sarah if she'd be willing to share her story with the new class starting in October. Sarah agreed. Standing in front of that room full of people who looked just as desperate and hopeless as she'd felt 9 months earlier, Sarah told them everything. The divorce, the eviction notice, the $127, the online work, the victory of the first debt, the slow, grinding, beautiful progress. "I'm not special," Sarah told them. "I'm not smarter or more talented or more disciplined than you. I was just desperate enough to ask for help, humble enough to admit I didn't have all the answers, and stubborn enough to keep going when it got hard, because it did get hard. There were nights I wanted to quit, days I resented every dollar I couldn't spend on something fun, moments I was jealous of people who seemed to have it easy, but I kept showing up, one day at a time, $1 at a time, and slowly the mountain moved. The room was silent. Then someone started clapping, then another, then everyone. And Sarah realized something profound. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to everyone who needed to know that change was possible. By December 31st of 2026, exactly 1 year after that desperate New Year's Eve prayer, with $127 to her name, Sarah Mitchell stood in her apartment with her 3 children and made a list of everything that had changed. She'd paid off $23,917 in debt. She had $917 left on that final credit card, which she'd eliminate in January. She had $1,200 in an emergency fund. She had 3 jobs: the grocery store, online work, and financial coaching. Her total monthly income was averaging $2,800. She was covering her expenses with margin left over. She was saving for the first time in years, but those were just numbers. The real changes were deeper. She'd rebuilt her confidence. She'd discovered she was capable of far more than she'd believed. She'd learned to ask for help. She'd found a community of people who supported her. She'd become a person her children could be proud of, not because she had money, but because she refused to quit. At 11:55 p.m., Sarah gathered her kids around the kitchen table. Let's pray before the new year starts. Emma, Joshua, and Lily held hands. Sarah prayed, God, a year ago, I sat at this table feeling hopeless. I had nothing left. I didn't know how we'd make it. But you met me there. You didn't give me a lottery ticket or a miracle check. You gave me something better. You gave me a plan. You gave me people. You gave me strength I didn't know I had. You showed me that the miracle isn't in the money appearing. The miracle is in the person I became while earning it. She opened her eyes and looked at her children. This year taught me that God doesn't waste our wilderness. Every hard thing we went through had a purpose. I learned discipline. I learned humility. I learned gratitude. I learned that I'm stronger than my circumstances. And kids, you learned those things too. You learned that hard work pays off. That saying no to what you want today means saying yes to what you need tomorrow. That family sticks together, that we don't quit. The countdown started. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. They hugged. They cheered. They stayed up until 12:30 eating popcorn and watching the replay of the Times Square ball drop. And when Sarah finally went to bed that night, she pulled out her journal and wrote one sentence. This time last year, I had $127 and no hope. This year, I have $1,200 and unlimited hope. That's a miracle. The story of Sarah Mitchell isn't just about paying off debt. It's about transformation. About what happens when faith meets action, when desperation meets strategy, when humility meets persistence. Sarah didn't just change her bank account, she changed her entire life. And she did it one decision at a time. If you're starting 2026 feeling behind, feeling broken, feeling like everyone else has it together except you, I need you to hear this. You're not behind. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Your struggle isn't wasted. It's preparing you for something better. The question isn't whether you'll face hard things, you will. Life guarantees that. The question is, what will you do with them? Will you let them crush you, or will you let them refine you? Sarah's journey teaches us 7 powerful principles that can transform anyone's financial life, regardless of where you're starting. First, face the truth. Sarah's breakthrough began when she wrote down every dollar she owed. You can't defeat an enemy you refuse to see. Grab a piece of paper right now. Write down every debt, every bill, every dollar you owe. Look at it, all of it. It's terrifying, but it's necessary. The monster is always smaller once you turn on the lights. Second, ask for help. Pride is expensive. Sarah almost lost her apartment because she was too ashamed to ask for help. When she finally humbled herself and walked into that church program, everything changed. There are people in your community right now, financial counselors, churches, non-profits, mentors who want to help you. But they can't help you if you don't ask. Swallow your pride. Raise your hand. Admit you need help. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Third, increase your income. Sarah couldn't budget her way out of her hole. The math didn't work. She was structurally short every month. So she had to increase income. She worked online at night. She got certified in a new skill. She turned her mess into a message and started coaching others. What skills do you have that you could monetize? What could you do for 2 hours a night after your kids go to bed? What certification could you get that would increase your hourly rate? You don't need a college degree. You need resourcefulness and hustle. Fourth, use the debt snowball. Sarah didn't try to pay everything at once. She picked the smallest debt and attacked it with intensity. When it was gone, she rolled that payment into the next debt. The momentum built. The wins accumulated. Psychologically, this method works because you see progress fast. That first victory gives you hope. Hope gives you energy. Energy gives you persistence. And persistence wins. Fifth, every dollar needs a name. Before the month begins, tell your money where to go. Rent, food, utilities, debt, savings. If you don't control your money will control you. Sarah learned to use zero-based budgeting. At the end of the month, income minus expenses equals 0. Not hoping it works out, not fingers crossed, actual 0. Every dollar has a job. Sixth, Cut what doesn't serve you. Sarah cut her phone bill by switching plans. She reduced gas by carpooling. She used the food bank to supplement groceries. She destroyed her credit cards. Every cut hurt. Every sacrifice felt like loss. But those small cuts added up to hundreds of dollars a month. Hundreds of dollars became thousands. Thousands became freedom. What are you spending money on that you don't actually need? That streaming service you barely use? That car payment that's drowning you? That daily coffee run? I'm not saying don't ever enjoy anything. I'm saying be intentional. Choose your spending consciously instead of defaulting to convenience. 7th, celebrate every victory. When Sarah paid off that first $370 utility bill, the people in her support group celebrated like she'd won the lottery, because in a way, she had. She'd won a battle against hopelessness. She'd proven to herself that change was possible. Celebrate your wins, no matter how small. Paid off a $100 medical bill. Celebrate. Went a week without eating out. Celebrate. Stuck to your budget for a month. Celebrate. These celebrations aren't frivolous. They're fuel. They remind you why you're fighting. They give you strength for the next battle. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this sounds great, but Sarah had opportunities I don't have. She could work at night because her kids were old enough. She could do online work because she had a computer. She lived in a city with resources. Let me tell you something. Excuses are expensive, more expensive than your debt. Because excuses keep you stuck. Sarah could have made excuses. She was a single mum with 3 kids and no child support. She had no degree. She had no savings. She was facing eviction. She had every reason to give up. But she didn't. She looked at what she had instead of what she lacked. She had time at night after her kids slept. She had skills from an old job. She had a church nearby. She had determination. What do you have? I guarantee you have more than you think. The question is, are you willing to use it? Let me tell you what happened after December 2026. Sarah paid off that last credit card in January 2027, $917. Gone. For the first time in 4 years, she was completely debt-free except for monthly bills. 0 consumer debt. 0 credit cards. 0 personal loans. Just her rent and utilities and normal life expenses. The feeling was indescribable. She'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without the weight of debt crushing her chest. But Sarah didn't stop. She'd learned something powerful during her journey. The habits that got her out of debt were the same habits that would build wealth. So she kept working her 3 income streams. She kept budgeting. She kept saying no to wants and yes to needs. But now, instead of the extra money going to debt, it went to savings. By March, her emergency fund hit $3,000. That was 3 months of bare-bones expenses. For the first time in her adult life, Sarah had a cushion. When her car needed repairs, $500, she didn't panic. She didn't put it on a credit card. She paid cash from her emergency fund, then rebuilt the fund over the next 2 months. By June, she had $6,000 saved. By September, $10,000. Her financial coaching business had grown. She was making $1,200 to $1,500 a month from coaching alone. She raised her rates from $50 an hour to $75. She was booked solid. People were referring friends. Her mess had truly become her message. In October 2027, almost 2 years after that desperate New Year's Eve prayer, Sarah did something that seemed impossible 18 months earlier. She put a down payment on a house, not a big house. A small 3-bedroom in a modest neighborhood, but it was hers. Well, hers and the bank's for the next 30 years, but still. After nearly being evicted, after scraping by in that apartment month after month, Sarah became a homeowner. The kids cried when she told them. Emma said, "Mom, you did it. You really did it. We have a home." Joshua said, "I'm going to get my own room." Lily said, "Can we paint my room purple?" Moving day was in November. Patricia from Hope Community Church came to help. So did Marcus. So did Jennifer and her accountability partner. So did half the people from the Tuesday night financial program. They carried boxes and furniture. They painted walls. They hung pictures. And when it was done, when the last box was unpacked and the furniture was arranged, they all gathered in Sarah's new living room and prayed, thanking God for provision, for transformation, for the journey that had brought them here. Sarah's story spread. She was invited to speak at other churches, at women's groups, at financial literacy events. She started a blog sharing her journey. She created a free email course teaching the basics of budgeting and debt payoff. Thousands of people signed up. She got emails from all over the country, people saying, "I was ready to give up. Your story gave me hope. I paid off my first debt because of what you taught me. I'm starting my own financial coaching business because you showed me it was possible." And that's when Sarah realized something profound, her darkest moment. That New Year's Eve with $127 and no hope wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning. God hadn't abandoned her in that valley. He'd been preparing her for a mission she didn't even know she had, to help others find their way out of the darkness, to be living proof that change is possible, to show people that your worst season can become your greatest testimony. By December 31st, 2027, 3 years after the darkest night of her life, Sarah Mitchell sat in her own living room in her own house with her 3 children and reflected on how far they'd come. From $127 and eviction to home ownership and financial stability. From hopelessness to purpose. From victim to victor. She pulled out her journal and wrote, "God didn't waste a single tear. Every hard moment had a purpose. The divorce taught me I was stronger than I knew. The debt taught me discipline. The desperation taught me humility. The journey taught me that transformation isn't about one big miracle. It's about 1,000 small choices. It's about getting up one more time than you fall down. It's about believing that tomorrow can be different than today if you're willing to do the work to make it different." Now, I want to speak directly to you. If you've watched this whole story, you're here for a reason. Maybe you're facing eviction like Sarah was. Maybe you're drowning in credit card debt. Maybe you're working 2 jobs and still can't make ends meet. Maybe you're a single parent feeling overwhelmed. Maybe you're starting this year feeling defeated before it even begins. I need you to hear this. Your story isn't over. This isn't your ending. This is your beginning. The fact that you're here, watching this video, learning from Sarah's journey, means you're ready for change. You're looking for answers. You're hoping for something better. That hope, even that tiny flicker, is enough to start with. Here's what I want you to do right now, not tomorrow, not next week. Right now. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We're building a community of people who are done making excuses and ready to make changes. Second, write down one action you'll take this week. Just one. Maybe it's writing down all your debts. Maybe it's researching financial counseling in your area. Maybe it's signing up for a side hustle platform. Maybe it's calling a creditor to negotiate. Just one action. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day, then do it. Third, come back to this video in 30 days and leave a comment telling me what happened. What action did you take? What changed? What did you learn? I read every comment. I respond to as many as I can, and I genuinely care about your journey. Your victory matters. Your struggle matters. You matter. And finally, share this video with someone who needs it. You know who I'm talking about. That friend who's always stressed about money. That family member who's drowning in debt. That coworker who's working 3 jobs and still falling behind. Send them this link. Don't be preachy about it. Just say, "Hey, I watched this and thought of you." It might help. You could literally change someone's life by sharing this story. Sarah's journey from $127 to financial freedom took 2 years of intense work. Your journey might be shorter. It might be longer. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you start today, right now, this moment. Because the time is going to pass anyway. 2027 is coming whether you change or not. 2028 is coming. 2029. The years will pass. The question is, what version of you will be there to meet them? The version that stayed stuck, or the version that decided enough was enough and did something about it? Sarah chose to become someone new, someone stronger, someone wiser, someone free. You can make that choice too. The tools are available. The path is clear. The help is there. All you need is the courage to take the first step. And you have that courage. I know you do because you're still here. You watched this whole story. You didn't click away when it got hard or long or uncomfortable. You stayed. That persistence, that willingness to sit with discomfort and keep learning, that's the same quality that will carry you to freedom. So take a deep breath. Say a prayer. Ask God to give you wisdom and strength and opportunity. Then open your eyes and take action. Write down the debts, make the budget, find the help, start the side hustle, cut the expenses, pay off the first debt, celebrate the victory, keep going, keep pushing, keep believing, because your breakthrough is coming. Not someday, not eventually, soon. Sooner than you think, but only if you start. Sarah started with $127 and a desperate prayer. What will you start with? Whatever it is, it's enough. You're enough. Your situation isn't too broken. Your debt isn't too big. Your past isn't too messy. God specializes in resurrection, in taking what's dead and making it live. In taking what's broken and making it beautiful. He did it for Sarah. He'll do it for you. If you let him, if you partner with him, if you combine faith with action and hope with strategy, your last Christmas doesn't have to be your last Christmas. Your darkest moment doesn't have to be your final moment. It can be your turning point, your catalyst, your beginning, the moment you look back on and say, that's when everything changed. That's when I decided to become someone different. That's when my real life started. The year 2026 is here. It's a blank page. What will you write on it? A story of excuses, or a story of transformation, a tale of staying stuck, or a testimony of breakthrough? The pen is in your hand. The page is waiting. Start writing. Your future self is counting on you. Your kids are watching you. Your community needs your story. And God is ready to partner with you. All you have to do is take the first step, then the next, then the next, one step at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time. You can do this. You really can. Sarah did. Thousands of others have, and you will too. I believe in you. God believes in you. Now you just need to believe in yourself. So close your eyes for a moment. Take a deep breath. And when you open them, your new life begins. Not someday. Today. Right now. This moment. Let's go. Your breakthrough is waiting. Verse for your meditation. But my God shall supply all your need according to his riches in glory by Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:19.